I mean, he always has stated, despite Ridley Scott then doing the final cut as a final fuck you to him, he always claimed that he was a human, not a replicant,
Right.
and that he felt it was really harsh on the audience not to give them a human, sympathetic protagonist. But looking at the performance, it's not like he's making it this very
Yeah.
engaging, charming. He plays it far more as a sort of dead replicant than as a human.
Although the replicants we see are full of life and psychotic energy.
Yeah, so maybe it's a deliberate choice and it's meant to be ironic.
Yeah, the humans are the downbeat ones.
Yeah, the argument of whether or not Deckard is a replicant has never been terribly interesting to me because it doesn't change much as far as the themes of the movies go. Whether or not, because I mean, the movie in general is just all about what is personhood, and in the end, I mean, if he is or he isn't, we've established at the end that the replicants have the power to empathize and have personhood. So even if he is, it's, I don't know, not that big of a deal.
I,
I
f-
agree.
I
It's
feel,
the
yeah.
question and the issues about what makes a replicant far more interesting than the answer.
Yeah. I feel like if there is a character to Deckard, it's in that kind of struggle. This idea that, he doesn't have much dialogue and he doesn't have narration in this cut, obviously, but just the notion that he always feels like there's something wrong with him that he can't quite
Hmm.
put his finger on. He remembers things, but he doesn't remember. There's just something he can't quite place, like a splinter in his mind. And at the end, when he looks at the unicorn origami, it's almost like he has this realization. He grasps something and he nods and I don't know, he just goes on with his life. He goes into the future, like having realized something about himself. But as you say, it's all very subtle and not really explained in dialogue.
The movie is very lean, perhaps to its detriment, as it feels like it could benefit from a few other scenes, even though it is pushing 2 hours. Owl.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to having a bit of narration, like a bit of like understanding of his character, but apparently the narration that we did get in the original cut, which I haven't seen, was just really poorly done and poorly written.
Well, it was very last minute and tacked on. Are
Mm.
you guys all on Sean Young, the femme fatale?
Yes,
Yeah.
with her amazing pompadour. This office is incredible. It's so Egyptian and just saturated with golden light.
Yeah, you can finally see the sun above the clouds. Tyrell's the only one who gets to poke above all the pollution.
It's amazing matte painting. It always makes me sad that matte painting doesn't exist anymore as a technique. And I think this movie just benefits so much for having all the sort of special effects done in camera. It just gives everything a weight and a sort of an authenticity that modern CGI never has that texture and that weight.
Totally, and the
It's just
miniatures, just fantastically
mm.
detailed and carved. It's gorgeous, and you can tell, as you said, there's a tangibility that there's something physically there that you just don't get with CGI.
I think the only person who's still keeping it going is Peter Jackson because he still tends to mix up old school effects with the new.
Mm.
One could argue that he overdoes CGI.
Well, I think The Hobbit is much less restrained than Lord of the Rings.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, Lord of the Rings, things like using the Orthanc as a model really works well, I think, and Dol Guldur and all those sorts of sets.
mm.
But I love this idea, like this thematic idea, that in the future, the rich will literally live higher than the poor, and so will live above the pollution.
Mm.
So only the wealthy will see the sunrise and sunset. And that to me is like something that could definitely happen.
And contrasting the grimy, horrible chaos of the streets and how claustrophobic it feels and drizzly and scummy and just wet down in the trenches compared to this very beautiful, almost like Roman temple up here.
Mm.
It's like Mount Olympus or something.